Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Jeffrey Lyles, welcoming you to a new installment of Lyles Figure Files. So, as you know, I tend to find myself in this position where I'm hyping up Todd McFarlane's McFarlane DC Multiverse line. For my money, it's the best value. You get great figures, individually, uniquely sculpted figures for $19.99. Really hard to beat that price point. And one of the biggest improvements that McFarlane's made over this last 5-6 months is actually increasing the amount of non-Batman, non-Superman characters to the roster. So we've seen some really good figures that have nothing to do with Batman and Superman. So when I saw this news from this leak list of a Flash Page Puncher set, I was really excited because I feel like Flash is one of those characters who never gets as many figures from his corner of the universe as he should. I've talked about how Flash has one of the best rogue galleries in comic books. They've got great costumes, and there's just so many characters to pull from. And that's just his villains. He's got a big Flash supporting family, lots of great speedsters to pull from that arena, and there's just so much stuff on the Flash front. So I was really hyped up to see, yes, we're going to get a dedicated series for Flash. Now, McFarlane doesn't really do waves per se, but these page punchers, the Build-A-Figure sets tend to stick within that one realm. And then I started seeing the pictures. And I was like, oh shoot, I think McFarlane is so bored because there's no real massive, continually increasing, continually released DC Extended Universe movie realm to draw figures from. He's just using the page punchers to be like, all right, well, here's what I would do if I was to make a movie wave of Flash figures. And these designs are very much like you'd expect from a movie where it's just like, let's take all the charm and heart out of the classic costumes and make a movie cool. So our first one is Flash, and he's got this weird look. He kind of looks more like the Morrison Johnny Quick than he does the Flash. He's got this odd cherry red paint to him too. Kind of looks like a popsicle, not gonna lie. So it's a weird look. At least we kind of have a comic book based Flash. I still think that original Flash comic book figure has a bit of a cartoonish head. So I was really hoping this would be the figure where I could get a serious, kind of smiley Barry head sculpt that didn't look so close to being a comic book or cartoon look for him. So he's a little bit disappointing, but I already have a comic book Flash. The other figures in this wave are the ones that I was most excited about. That's Captain Cold, it's Heat Wave, Atom, one of Flash's staunchest allies from the Justice League, and a mega figure of Gorilla Grodd. So Captain Cold is one of my favorite DC villains. I don't think he's out of the top 10 at this point. I really love the character. I think his costume looks cool. Oh boy, that was a terrible one. I like his costume. It's great. And I know it's really easy to make it look corny, but if a artist does it and makes it look right, it actually looks like a great design. Shows off how great the design is without making it look silly. So got him. And Heat Wave is another character who, Captain Cold and Heat Wave's designs were such that even decades later, comic book artists didn't feel the need to spice it up to make it look better because the designs were just so good. So Heat Wave also is another character who has a really great design, kind of timeless. He's basically wearing an asbestos suit, has a heat gun. That's all you need. So then we started seeing the designs of these guys, and I was a little bit worried because Captain Cold didn't look anything like what I was anticipating. He looks like alien guy that uses a freeze gun, and at least from the photos, it looks like his freeze gun is a big, massive cannon attached to his hand. Not really my favorite take on the character. It's kind of got some of the whole elements with the fur around the gloves, a scarf, sort of, and then the hoodie with fur as well. But the mask just looks odd, and it's just such a weird take on Captain Cold's design because Captain Cold has a really great design, and this figure is just, I don't know, it really looks like how it would look if you saw Captain Cold in a movie, in a Flash movie. And Heat Wave isn't a lot better. He's got that same kind of, hey, let's movie him up. So he's got all this big armor on top of his asbestos suit. He's got another mask, helmet kind of deal. And just like Captain Cold, if these were other characters, like if I didn't know what Heat Wave and Captain Cold were supposed to look like, I would think, hey, these are cool characters. I'll add them to fight my Marvel Legends or random DC heroes. But because they represent two of the biggest Flash rivals, I don't want them to steer so far away from a classic design. And I know McFarlane likes to tinker a little bit with designs, but this is going a little bit too far for my liking. So Heat Wave also has a big cannon, gun, blaster for his heat, fire rays, and it's just not really a fan of it. It's too much orange in it. It's kind of it's losing the subtlety that this is the fire guy. It's like, hey, here's a fire guy. They both kind of look like villains you'd see in Mega Man. And, where Flash defeats them and then he gets the flame blaster or the cold ray. So these characters look, in terms of figure designs, they're okay, but I'd much rather McFarlane said, hey, let's do classic style Captain Cold, classic style Heat Wave, and then go nuts with whatever different versions and variations you want on those two characters. So next up is Adam, which I assume is Ryan Choi. Doesn't look like a Ryan or Ray Palmer kind of setup. And this one is pretty basic. It's got the color schemes, blue and red. And again, it's more of an armored up style, which makes me think it's Ryan Choi as opposed to Ray Palmer. He's got a helmet with a visible head plate, which is kind of funny because, shouldn't you be wearing a mask to protect your identity a little bit, even though you shrink down to super small size? He's got a hoop, which is kind of interesting because normally when you see the Atom, he's got that Atom split with two where he's kind of emerging from. So having one seems like a bit of a mistake. And if you're going to include one, you should have gone the other route and didn't both of them. Maybe make it a base so Adam can fly through it or whatever. I don't dislike this design as much as I do Captain Cold and Heat Waves, but I do think it kind of loses some of the charm of the design. There's not even the logo of the Atom there, but it's okay. Again, a miss for me. I don't think any of these figures really capture the great qualities of these designs, but I think Ryan Choi's outfit is okay. I think for the most part, these characters, these figures would work in a generic sense of having background characters for your DC Multiverse line, not representative of these characters as you would normally expect them to be in the comic book. I think this is one of the waves that, I think this is such and such, but if you took somebody that had a passing knowledge of these characters based off of how they look in the comics, I don't know if they would piece it together. So finally, the big massive one, the Mega Fig, who's $39.99, is a Gorilla Grodd. And Grodd looks big. I think as a Mega figure, he's going to be a lot bigger than that original Gorilla Grodd we got that was basically the same size as the Flash, which really turned me off from getting that figure. But he's got a weird design. He's got this orange armor, which I think is supposed to be more gold, but it's just super orange. And I can't help but look at this guy and think, yeah, this is sort of what I would think a man-ape figure would look like, minus the gorilla head. You just put it out and put a real person's head in there. But the figure looks okay. He's got the right build. The arms look much bigger. The forearms. He's got the gorilla physique, if you will, the gorilla anatomy. Looks alright. There's no angry head sculpt, which I kind of think is weird because if you're going to do Grodd, I don't think of him as calm and serene. I think of him as more raw, teeth showing. I kind of feel that's interesting because normally McFarlane goes for that animalistic expressions for characters like Man-Bat, like Gorilla Grodd. So to have this calm one, it's kind of weird. And I think this one's okay, but again, it doesn't quite hit that Gorilla Grodd excitement that I had in my mind when I saw the lineup for this wave. I was expecting to have a DC Multiverse Grodd, Captain Cold, Heat Wave, maybe even a comic book style Atom that I could add onto the shelf. And these guys are just another, okay, you guys are being really creative. It's like that Wonder Woman from the Gold label where it was okay, I'd really just like a comic book version. Now in this case, we do have a comic book Flash, but we don't have the other ones. And I'm kind of starting to worry that McFarlane is going so creative with these designs that the comic book versions are being left by the wayside. and the 2 pickup and I'll get to them later pile. And I think that he'd sell a lot more figures going classic and then going, I'm going to do my own look for these characters. I just think that's the backwards approach, doing the random style before you get to the comic book version. I don't know, what you guys think? So finally, the last reveal from McFarlane this week was a Superman inspired by his appearance in Hush. So he's got the Jim Lee head sculpt, and this head sculpt really, really is well done. Captures that Jim Lee style better than a lot of figures I've seen, short of the DC Direct figures. But the head sculpt is great. They've got the hair down just right. The expression, he's angry. He's got the heat vision eyes. Great head sculpt. And he's got the poison ivy wrapped up around him, the vines controlling him, making sure that he's going to kill Batman, just like he did in the comic book. And a really nice looking figure. The only problem is McFarlane didn't take this opportunity to just make a basic streamlined Superman. So it's still got the cuffs from the DC Rebirth figure. That's kind of not great to see. The seam lines from the paneling are also there. I feel like this was such a miss in terms of getting that classic Superman, because this figure is great. And if you just take out the vines, you give him a different head sculpt, maybe a smiling one, maybe a neutral head sculpt, this would be the definitive DC Multiverse from McFarlane Toys version of Superman. And you got that Jim Lee head sculpt. So if somebody doesn't want a, Jim Lee sculpt, or if they really want that Jim Lee head sculpt, bam, you got it. But then this body could then be reused for numerous Superman figures, maybe even a John Byrne if you want to do an artist interpretation series of Superman. This is the base for it. At least it should have been. And these little tweaks just make it just so close, but not good enough. So I do think this is a nice figure though, and this one's going to be exclusive to the McFarlane Toy Store, so you're not going to be able to find this at Target, like you would normally find all of their releases. So not a bad figure. I just wish they'd take the time to tweak out some of these details, like we've seen with that Red Robin. It clearly seems like they designed that figure with the classic red green sleeve attire, and then we're gonna get that one later, but they didn't really care about that with the designs of that first figure. So it's all red, but you see the sleeves, you see the paneling setup that's much more in tune with the classic Tim Drake outfit as opposed to the Red Robin attire. So they're kind of doing some backward things a little bit with some of these figures, and for the most part I'm still Team McFarlane in terms of what they're pulling out, just in terms of bringing out so many figures to us. So with the rate they're cranking out figures, I feel pretty confident that they will continue to refine, retune, get the right version of the figure, at least the right version of me, out, and not have us waiting forever to get that definitive version of a lot of these characters. So that's my take on these DC page punchers from the Flash. A major letdown for me because I wanted comic book versions, but let me know if you guys like these designs. Are you interested in getting them? Are you excited about it? Or are you like me and just wish they'd done a comic book style? And what's your take on that gold label Superman? I think the figure looks really good if you can get past the seams and those cuffs. But that Jim Lee head sculpt was amazing. Alright, so that's it for me. As always, thank you so much for watching. This episode of Lost Figure Files has been filed.